Alright, hi everyone, this is Greg, and today we're gonna speak a bit about history of whiskey. Not super in depth because it would be super long and I have 3 bottles to present to you. And we're gonna speak of the Lindores Abbey Distillery from Scotland in Lowlands, and I'm gonna tell you how this came to my attention and also how this is linked to history of Scotch whiskey, and also I will give you a bit of a quick context about different spirits and how we got to Scotch whiskey of today. Alright, so I searched a bit to put this into context, because I think at this stage everybody knows the famous story, what's explained about the 8 bowls of malt, aka 500 kilos of malt, which have been discovered. This first record of whiskey distillation in Scotland were recorded in the 1494 Exchequer's Roll, stating that Brother John Core was commissioned by King James IV to turn 8 bowls of malt into Aquavitae. By Aquavitae has been understood the whiskey ancestor's first form. So I will explain what that means. It's not exactly whiskey like this, but more likely like this. I will explain what it is. Right, so, but prior to that, let's go back very quickly to the history of distillation. We know that the Copt from Egypt, ancient Egypt, so it goes back to 3,000 years, I think, did invent the art of distilling, but not for drinking. Originally, it was for making perfumes and aromatics, and it's also the word alcohol, so it's an Arabic word. And then there was a lot of fermentation, but the art of distilling, like it was in the first records of the Scotch whisky industry, came out later, and it has been. The legend says that Saint Patrick. Anyway, you will see it's a monk and monastery thing, the distillation in Western countries. I mean, in Europe, it's more likely about that than anything else. So it's Saint Patrick who's supposed to be, according to a lot of history books, of Scotch whisky. And for this episode, I relied a lot of Charles MacLean writings, and even this little wee book tells a very precious, very interesting book. By the way, I talked about it in my video about whiskey books, and you can also find it in varied encyclopedias. Dave Broom, who else? A lot of whiskey, Ian Baxton, a lot of whiskey writers. So basically, if I follow my very complicated sheet, so Egypt, then it's brought to Ireland first, as we understand, but we also found records in Italy in the 13th century. And when we say Aquavitae, we're speaking about grain, undisclosed varieties of grain, but it happens to be most of the time in Europe, it happens to be, as I understand it, malted barley or different other cereals, wheat for instance. So yeah, 13th century, to put into context, it's also in 13th century that Armagnac appears in France, so 700 years. Cognac appears in one century later, in the 15th century. It's introduced by Dutch, which I didn't know. Why? Because when they were transporting Pinot de Charente or different wine from the Charente, the west region of France where cognac is produced nowadays, they had issues to transport it. So to help preserve the quality of the wine, they decided sometimes to use distillation at some point, let's say. Then 3 centuries later, so in 18th century, the distillators from Charente decided to modify the still to get something more refined, and so they invent the alambic charentais. Alambic is still in French. Charentais is from the Charente region, to make it a double distillation. So they find a system to connect the two stills. We'll go more into that when I will do a cognac episode and an Armagnac episode, by the way. So we're in 14 centuries, let's say, and then we can move also to let me see my notes. The first, I know this is a dispute, and yeah, I was there, so that's why I'm wearing their t-shirt. I was in Lindores in 2018, before even they present a whiskey, and when they only had this, which has to be considered as a spirit drink, because it has aroma botanicals in it, and it's not 3 years old. But I will present you the 3 bottles later on. Right, so the Irish claim also the invention of whiskey, but in 1405, with the records found in the Irish Annals of Clonmacnoise, where it's quoted, somebody was required to taking a surfeit of Ushkebo, so Aquavitae. Ushkebo became contracted in Ushka and then in whiskey, modified a long time after that. And of course we know the grant to distill in the area of Antrim of 1608, which Bushmills claims that his whiskey dates back to that time, but we have no evidence about that, because the distillery was built only in 1784 or 94, I don't remember precisely now. But yeah, 18th century, not 1701. But we understand that illicit distilleries there, or not illicit because they had the grant, started to distill, or were already distilling, and so many that they had to be allowed because it was too complicated, and there were some taxes, of course, as usual, to be taken. And so the taxes came in 1970, 1700, in Scotland, but we have that 1494 record of distilling in the area, and I'm going to show you, have some visuals. By the way, about Lindores Abbey Distillery, as I was there, I take a lot of pictures, and I did a report on my website, so don't miss that. Here is the ad of the distillery, but you can see, I will show you, before that I have to show you something. If you can see the map here, so it is, you see the golfer, it's close to St. Andrews, so it's between Edinburgh and Perth, and there you have it, basically the place where the distillery is located. You have a more precise map here, don't know if you can see it. So St. Andrews, it's in the way, the address is Newburgh, by the way, so you take the M9T and then the A9013, and so on the way to Dundee, doesn't focus. I don't know why. Haven't checked the focus, but anyway. And then when you arrive there, you can see still the old ruins of the previous distillery, because it has been Lindores Abbey Distillery has been built just in front and in the domain of where was located the supposed most ancient Scottish whiskey distillery, but it was within an abbey. And I mean, the history of every spirit, almost every spirit, also in France, also the liqueurs that were very old, they were distilled in abbeys. So this is I love this picture because it's an official picture from them. I did one that's very close to that, because in this picture you can see the super modern stills. The distillery dates from 2017. Even the project has more than a decade. And you can see in front of the distillery the ruins of the old abbey. So, and there's a more complete view there of the front. And now let me give you a bit of presentation about the distillery. Did I went enough in history? That was very quick, I know. What can I say about the distillery? I wrote some stuff here, but it's more evident there. Yeah, also when you visit the distillery you have this with a drawing, a lot of drawings, and shows some of the engraving that are on the inside the museum part. This is also the Lindores Abbey Distillery was established in 1191, so quite old. And you can see, if I put this on the side, yeah, as usual I don't have enough room. So here's the plan, the map of how it was made. And yeah, the thing that's really like is that they did reproduce this modern engraving, but shows the map of the original abbey in an engraving you can see at the distillery. This is quite spectacular. The distillery is divided in two parts. One part is the museum part that relates the story of the place, and the other is the modern distillery. So basically there you have it. Let me put this back here before we try anything. Yeah, so basically it's a project engaged by Drew and Alan Mackenzie Smith, current owner, one of the three owners, but is currently changing. I mean the two, there's a share, and the two other people has dismissed, so it's going to be reorganized, and hopefully, as the owner says, he wishes to have 100% Scottish ownership, but we'll see that. So yeah, direct link from the Mackenzie Smith family is that they do own the land where it is for a long time, and they didn't know about this historical part, and they didn't know there was this until they do some searches, and also they decided to do a preservation society within the distillery for every agricultural activity around, and also planting trees and helping to have something working with the bees, etc. And if you buy a membership, you're helping that as well. So yeah, Friar John Core, you heard about that. So just in front of the distillery there's these ruins, and we know about this abbey in 1191 because David Earl, the Count of Huntingdon, founded it, and his name appears in Sir Walter Scott's books The Talisman. The abbey once sheltered the French Benedictine Thiron-Gardais order. So the it was known as the Thironesian Abbey. Monks who were located previously in Curso, in the borders. So according to the distillery's own researches, there were either masons, distillers, brewers, carpenters, blacksmiths, painters, gardeners, beekeepers, etc. Natural medicine working in the abbey's domain in orchards, and it was as big as 30 acres. The monks also had skills in calligraphy and manuscript illustration. Religious music was collected by monk Thomas Ward into the Ward Psalters, for those interested, an illustrated manuscript, and it's now housed at the St. Andrews University. So the new Lindores Abbey Distillery started to produce in 2017. Its flora and fauna also is preserved. About the distillery itself, it has 2 tons mash tun in stainless steel. And where did I wrote that? Somewhere. I know I wrote that somewhere. Yeah, 2 semi-loaded mash tuns. There are 4 wash bags in Douglas fir, and yeah, the semi-loader that has a copper lid, which is not usual all the time. They have 3 stills. That's a particularity. You can see there. First one you can see closer to me. I think it's the wash still. Yeah, it's the biggest. It's 10,000 liters. And there are 2 spirit stills, which are of 3,500 liters, named by the first name of the 2 daughters of the owner. And they do choose, they have options of what, in which of the 2 stills they will use it. It's a double distillation, mind you. So they, according to what was made before the wash, etc., they can choose in which of the 2 still they can distill. The spirit goes out from 75 to 67% ABV. Capacity of production when I was there was what? Where is it? Yeah, with of 100 in 2018 with of 150,000 liters. It's now up to 225,000 liters. So they upped the game. What else? If you want to go technical, the waters for each match, of course, it's 3 times. First at 65%, then 85%, and then 89%. It is Canadian distillery yeast, which is used for fermentation. Yeah, as usual, you will get some exclusive infos there in my videos. So a bit unusual, this Canadian distillery yeast. Fermentation time up to 70 to 96 hours. What else did I say? When I was there, the distillery was active 202 days out of 365, but it seems it has increased now. What else can I say? They mix the 2 spirits to do the Aquavitae, which is the spirit drink they had, and they still have, but they had before being ready to present a whiskey to the people. And they had different warehouses. One of them I did visit. So I met also, and I'm in contact with Gary Haggart, the master distiller, so that's why I'm going to give you also some exclusive informations about some of the whiskies today. Of the 2 whiskies today. By the time I was there in 2018, there were 753 casks stored in the main warehouse, and I was lucky to see cask 1. And you can see again pictures in there. So they first produced the new make sold as a spirit drink, and we're gonna see that in a sec. So the first thing, and we're gonna try it along. They this is a signed bottle, because I met them 16 years prior to my visit when they were the Mackenzie Smith were part of the staff of Glenmorangie Distillery. So that was amazing to see they had this project 16 years after, and to go visit them with the project into fruition and becoming alive. What else? Yeah, they can choose from 18 different cask types to do their whiskies. And yeah, the new make spirit, you can also buy it. It's reduced to 63.5, which is a current agreement between Scottish distillery for trading, exchanging things for blending, etc., etc. Yeah, so I think the historical point was super long. So we're gonna get into this. I struggled to find even some translation in French of the botanicals they use. So this is the closest thing to old whiskey, when whiskey was flavored, when whiskey was not aged already, or very shortly aged. This is around 1 year old. Unoaked, no, this is new. Oh yeah, new make. Yeah, I thought it was 1 year old, because I tried some samples in I think it was, don't remember now. It was when they before Brexit, when they could ship samples freely almost here, or cheaply from UK to here. So yeah, I tried 1 year old, I tried 1.5. It was very interesting. But this is an age, and this 40% ABV. This is said to be infused with a blend of spices and herbs, including cleavers, lemon verbena, and sweet sicily, which all grow in our gardens amidst the grounds of the ancient abbey. So they recommend to serve over ice or stir slowly with honey. There you have it. I'm going to jump into this. I also have some tasting notes. So yeah, this is the botanical that obviously give the color. Yeah, lots of verbena and aromatics. My nose is still a bit taken, but I have the sorry, just a sec. Yeah, sorry for the interruption. So yeah, so lots of so this is not whiskey, but this was close to what whiskey was in yesteryear. So for me, this typical new make aromas. So pear, plum spirit, boiled artichokes. Yeah, I know. Some complex botanicals. Some I can recognize, some I can't, because they're local. On the palate we will see that. So quite complex, a bit coming across medicinal, not peated, medicinal. Yeah, I forgot to say that first use, it was in the 13th century, up to 15, yeah. Most likely in Scotland and Ireland, the first use was medical. And so that's why also during the prohibition, but it's another story. And also some kind of interdiction of even in Scotland, where the bad things occur after the 17th century, 18th, yeah, 17,000, so 18th century, when all the bad stuff appeared, the clearances and prohibition of everything Scottish, tartans, bagpipes, whiskey, and even in the US after that, 2 centuries after, the only use that was allowed and often was pitied whiskies was for medicinal use, medical use, right? And you were buying your whiskey in small flask at the barber shop or the apothecary, and I saw in some books those on one side it was said in a way there could be whiskey, and in another was medical use, etc. So funny. So yeah, let's get back to it. So it's thick on the palate, full of botanicals. You should not think of whiskey in terms of notes. So sweet spices and botanicals. What is this? Yeah, juniper, chervil, verbena, a lot of verbena. There are also some malted barley, some dried fruits, mainly sultanas. And I did note a French word, which is called vergeoise, which is a kind of syrup sugar for dessert. And it's, or say it if you prefer, cassonade, so kind of candied sugar. So I'm not gonna dilute it, but this goes much well for me over ice than neat. I don't think this is really meant to be drunk neat, but if you want a comparison, think of a simplified version of Benedictine or Chartreuse, but unsugared, and you get a picture. Right. By the way, beautiful design. I'm not sure about it, but I wonder if it was not again Stranger and Stranger Design, the London agency that does the compass box. I have double checked that, but I think it's related to that. Yeah, this was a gift, by the way, but prior to that I did buy a bottle of this on my own money. They wanted to thank me for my support of the project before even it did start. I mean officially for you guys. We're gonna move now to the first single malt. And this is, have my notes. This one is from 2022. And if you want a price, yeah, the other is, I think, is in the 40, something like that. This one rather in France, around 55. I got it for 56 in a local retailer. This comes without any box, but I did, as usual, because I need boxes, I did a rant in the French version of this about the disappearance for ecological reasons of boxes. But me, I need boxes where I am. Not going to be long about that, but I need boxes, so I do cannibalize or recycle older cans, and this was given by the shop. So it's an ex-Benriach. It fits perfectly for this. And I did do a short. This is not super great for me. It's not super well done, but it helps me get the most important infos. So the barley is local, forgot to say. This is a modern whiskey. I wanted to do, I think I'm gonna do special video about it, because not gonna have enough time to speak of what I call the Parkerization or the Swanization of whiskey in the 2010s. This trend, the wood technology, the no age statement plus wood technology, which does all that. But I will And austere, I spoke a bit about STR in the Cotswolds, by the way, video, but I will go back to this at some point. Maybe something that will be more a rant than a whiskey review. This is whiskey and spirit review, so yeah, this is a mix of bourbon and sherry cask and STR wine barriques. STR for shaved, toasted, and recharred. Basically ex-red wine from Portugal, these, by the way, I think. And then we worked on the back side. I did put information and a picture of mine. The information I gave you earlier on. So we'll get back to the bottle. And yeah, so this is from the batch 197. This is 46% non-chill filtered, non-colored, and yeah, topped by coins from Whiskey Shared. I don't have the other one certified original. I don't have coins myself. I would like to have coasters at some point. Yeah, and I did spill some of it earlier on, even on the tube, but I'm happy it doesn't last. Legs not sticking very long, despite the absence of chill filtration. There's still some filtration. Nose, it's complex. It's very sweet, very pleasant, has a lot of charm. I was surprised because I heard of early batches that were not balanced and too much wine influence, but this is great. This is very well made. And this is an easy drink, honestly. I don't have my nose 100% today back, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna read my some delicate floral notes, some vanilla, some sweet spices. So on the background, cinnamon, nutmeg, a bit of ginger, but very sweetened. There's also, oh yeah, I forgot to say this, MCDXCIV. This is Latin numbers for 1494, which is the date not of this distillery, but the previous. Even they should have maybe said 1191, but 1494 is supposed to be the birth of Scotch whiskey. Even if I heard their older records, but yeah, and it's I forgot to say also it's in the kingdom. They say kingdom. It's a county of Fife in Lowlands. Yeah, so nice floral notes, there's vanilla. The STR are absolutely not overpowering this. I cannot find a note of wine, but some nice notes of tiny red fruits in the background maybe. It's psychological. But all in all, it's a malted barley, not too much modified, if I may say. I tried 100% first fill. Or first fill refill casks on samples, and they were quite luminous. I don't have another word for that. So bright and very pure. This is more worked, but I'm surprised how good this is, despite the mix of different cask types. So kudos to them to have managed to mix bourbon, sherry, and STR that way. So this is a small batch, not so small, so kind of a regular batch, but from a small distillery. Not the smallest. The smallest distillery, mind you, it's 10% of their production. So it's Avengeric or things like that, or 20,000. Here we're in 225,000. So okay, so pleasant notes, even almost some angelica, and really the balance is great. Let's go on the palate. It's quite remarkable how the when you swirl it, how the vanilla malted barley comes across. Some kind of also, yeah, I talked about Angelica. There's some brioche perfumes, aromats. At least in my tradition, on my Greek side, I'm half Armenian Greek, let's say. So on the Greek side, at Easter we have a brioche. We have a cake which has some Angelica in it, and it always Glenmorangie even more, but this goes back in my memory immediately to that. Yeah, some super balance, half dried, half sweet finish, slightly tannic, really slightly. Have some candied fruit, again some slightly oaky tone, but it's very subdued. Comes across also, forgot to say, as a kind of a liquid muesli granola, if you prefer. Breakfasty, it's a bit breakfasty. The malted barley also comes across nicely, and also some apples. I get some apples, probably from the sherry. I rated this 87.5 to my surprise, because it's well made, well balanced, and quite satisfying. Gonna put some drops of water, and then we move to the second and last bottle. Yeah, Swanization. It was about Dr. Jim Swan, who did help to start or restart a lot of distilleries around the world, and also brought the STR cask type into some kind of quick aging and quick flavoring, quick coloring. It's a drawback of wanting, mind you, of people who want a non-colored whiskey, because the distillery has to seduce a greater audience than us nerds and whiskey devotees. So in the general public still doesn't consider a whiskey as a good whiskey if it hasn't this color. You see the difference? Because this is virgin oak, and this is X different kind of content. So that's why a lot of distilleries want to have, but even this is for 4 years old. It shouldn't have this color, right? If it was only bourbon. But again, the color is something that can be very misleading. You can give the color you want basically to a whiskey with the cask selection. So it's not only a caramel question. That's what I meant. Anyway, for some distilleries it did work. That Swanization, Dr. Jim Swan, it did work, and Cotswold is the best example, I would say. But we'll get back to this. Okay. So again, quite satisfying. A lot of personality, but everything wrapped up in a beautiful package, physically as well. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I thought my my nose, tasting abilities were 100% back, but it's not exactly. But anyway, I tried this prior to that, so I think I can sit on my notes if I have doubts while testing it. Right. We're gonna move up now to, and I'm sorry for the English-speaking audience who is not in France, but I think you can get it online. I'm gonna move up to a special release for France. I assume they did, and I had the confirmation. So for this, I'm going to give you some exclusive infos I got from Gary Hackett, the master distiller, because I wanted to learn more about this. before considering buying it. Because I'm always worried when I hear virgin oak. Not a fan of virgin oak unless it's super well worked, like at Yoichi, for one of my best whiskies of my collection, 25 years old in virgin oak, but it's not the regular virgin oak. It's one of the best oak ever selected, and one of the best distillate of the planet, I believe, too. Back to this, it's a homage, it's a tribute to the Thiron-Gardais, which I talked to you before in the presentation, which is a place in France, in center-west, let's say, of France, where the monks of the abbey there went to visit and to build the Lindores Abbey Distillery. So the distillery owners wanted to pay back, to do an homage to them by selecting several casks in the forest nearby. And I can show you, because I did also some work about this. For this, the text is in French except the technical explanation. So you can see the abbey of Thiron-Gardais in France. And yeah, it's a French oak from the forêt of Thiron in the Perche region. And yeah, they worked with a French cooperage company now to do this this version, but they also do replant trees because they did take several ones to do the cask. So this is single cask. If we want to know everything about it, here it is. I like to give people information. So it's single cask 18/234. Cask filling date 13th of April 2018, and bottling date 19th of May 2022, so 4 years old, and it's only 408 bottles. As usual, no filtration, no chill filtration, no coloring. This is the glass, and the exclusive infos I'm gonna give you is it has been had a treatment, the oak cask, of a medium char. And if I didn't have the information, honestly, I wouldn't have bought it. Because I didn't want something that had just a slight toast. The cask also, I can tell you, it's 250 liters. And also I can tell you that for this version, for the French market, despite the initial strength, which was 62.7 ABV, it has been reduced slowly to 50% ABV. And I'm happy with it because I think it's a perfect ABV. Excuse me a sec. Yeah, I would have liked to do that later on, and I will come back to it probably, but I didn't want to make you wait too long for the French, as I did the French version of this video, I mean of those two, tasting those two. So viscosity is higher than the other one. The age is the same, but I don't know why, probably the filtration, which is different. Sweet filtration, but it can, the age is the same, there's only 4 degrees of difference. The color is darker because it's virgin oak, so first use ever of the cask. And what I like in this version is that despite the oak influence that's obvious, they managed to carry a bit of the distillery style, but also that specific oak from a French forest has some different taste than the Limousin oak, let's say. It comes across a bit differently. Because yeah, when they say French oak, it can be from the Tronchet forest or from the, more general Limousin oak. On west, it's close to the places where they do cognac. Not exactly, but it's on the west coast. but it can be from other regions of France. Yeah, some sweet spices. It's closer, of course, to a bourbon who wouldn't have been too much charred. It's a kind of paradox, I know. But then just after that you have vanilla and demerara sugar. Let's go on the palate. Of course the oak comes first, but this kind of nice, it's a foundation, but within it you have some kind of bit burnt caramel. I got to note that. Burnt caramel. So kind of the tannicity is, let's say, 2 out of 5, where I expected a 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5. 2.5, let's say, out of 5. With the previous one, the tannicity, I would say 0.5 out of 5. So you can see it's upped here to 2 points more, or a bit more, even maybe 3. But there's a nice vanilla, candied fruit, dried fruit on the second or third ground that gives some kind of backbone to it, not only oak, right? So that's the pleasant thing about it. It also do evolve. It's only this stage, so each tasting is almost better than previous one. Doesn't evolve spectacularly, we'll see later on, but I'm optimistic about this. This one I will not dilute it too much, just 2 drops, because sometimes adding water for this kind of profile brings more spicy and tannic character. But yeah, there's something pleasant, a bit not astringent really, a bit tannic, but it's not like some wine cask or so this will be more for the connoisseur. Let's say the other one more for the greater audience. That you have to like oak. It's less tannic than a lot of Armagnacs that I have, but it still is, and it's still young. So those 2 elements come across. Again, I like this pleasant, almost fudgy burnt, not super burnt caramel, bit toasted caramel, let's say, impressions. I do not have the notes of some bourbons, or that, you know, the kind of pecan pie and stuff. It doesn't come across as American at all, but you get the picture of something oaky, but also still a bit sweet, and with some different aspects, sugared, natural, things that can temper that oak. Of course, the rating is a bit lower than the 1494. It's 86 for now, but it started 83 at the opening. Sorry. So you can see there's an evolution. Also, while tasting this, I did 3-4 sips. So there you have it. This you can still find it online if you go to l'Explorateur du Goût. I don't know the distributors if they will ship to you if you're outside France. This again reservations. This is more for connoisseurs. It's not for a greater audience, but also there's only 408 bottles. So I haven't tried the full STR cask strength versions of this. They're not available easily here. You know, there's some German exclusive whiskey Jason has talked about. Go to see maybe his channel about those. But yeah, so overall a nice version. I love the blue also, the blue and white contrast labels. and the contrast between the blue and the amber color this gives. So it's also an object of worship as often. So thanks for watching. I hope it was interesting and not too tiring with my still nose coming forward, nasal voice a bit. But I think I gave you some kind of context for this, and hope you like it. See you soon for something else.